I used to think apartments were just walls stacked on walls, nothing more. But after moving into this building, I learned how much of someone's life leaks through plaster. A kettle whistling. A drawer closing too hard. Laughter that stops too quickly. Her door was right across from mine. Ms. Alvarez. Early 40s, maybe mid. Always carried her groceries in reusable bags that looked heavier than they should. The first time we spoke, it was just about the elevator being broken again. Her voice had this calm weight to it, like she wasn't in a rush to get anywhere. That evening, I ended up at the laundromat downstairs. Half the machines rattled like old train cars. I was sitting on the plastic bench, scrolling through messages I'd typed but never sent. Stupid ones like, "You awake?" or, "Want to grab a drink?" to people I didn't even feel close to anymore. She walked in halfway through the spin cycle, carrying a basket tucked against her hip. A few strands of hair had slipped out of the bun on top of her head. She gave me this small nod, like we were co-conspirators trapped in the same dull chore. "You always get stuck with the noisy ones?" she asked, dropping a pile of towels into the machine next to mine. "Guess I've got bad luck." I tried a smile. She pressed the start button, then leaned on the machine, arms folded. "Nah. These are the good ones. Loud means they're still fighting to stay alive." I laughed, quieter than I meant to, and for a second she looked at me like she hadn't heard someone laugh in a while. Or maybe that was just me reading into it. We sat there while the machines turned. The room smelled like detergent and dust. I fiddled with the corner of a receipt in my pocket until it tore into 2 pieces. She noticed, though she didn't say anything. "You work nights, don't you?" she asked suddenly. "Yeah. Stocking shelves over at Myers." "How'd you know?" "You're the only neighbor I hear leaving at 11 p.m. Thought maybe you were running from something." She said it with a dry half-smile, not unkind. I wanted to answer, but the words caught somewhere. She didn't press. Just sat down beside me on the hard bench, close enough that I caught the faint scent of coffee lingering on her sweater. The dryers hummed. A kid outside kept hitting the metal railing with a stick, steady as a metronome. When her towels were done, she folded them slowly, one edge perfectly over the other. I found myself watching her hands more than I should have. She noticed again. "You're quiet," she said, not looking up. "I'm usually worse," I admitted. That made her laugh, soft and real, before she stuffed the last towel into her basket. She held it at her hip again, adjusting her sweater with her free hand. "Well," she said, pausing at the door, "quiet doesn't always mean empty." And just like that, she left. I sat there until my clothes cooled in the dryer, staring at the door she'd gone through. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the silence. A message. Unknown number. "Hallway's too cold. Come by for coffee sometime." I didn't move right away. Just folded my jeans, one edge carefully over the other, like I'd seen her do. I didn't answer the text that night. Just read it a dozen times, as if staring long enough would make the invitation dissolve. By morning, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But the next evening, when I came home, her door was half open. A soft lamp glow spilled into the hallway. She stepped out holding a mug, steam curling into the dim air. "You walk past like I'm invisible," she said, lifting the mug a little. "Coffee's still warm." I froze, one hand on my keys. She tilted her head, waiting, not pushing, just leaving the door open wider. I heard myself mutter, "Sure," and stepped inside. Her apartment felt lived in, softer than mine. Books stacked in uneven piles. A blanket draped over the back of the couch. A photo frame turned slightly toward the wall. She set the mug down on the counter and poured another from a French press. "No sugar, right?" I blinked. "How'd you? I've seen you downstairs. You never take the sugar packets." She slid the mug to me. It was such a small detail, but it hit harder than it should have. Someone had noticed. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table. The coffee was hot, bitter. I sipped too quickly and burned my tongue, pretending I hadn't. She glanced toward the tilted photo. That's my son, she said quietly. He's your age. 22. I followed her eyes but didn't ask. She turned the frame all the way down, like she'd already shared more than she meant to. The silence stretched. I picked at a loose thread on my sleeve, wishing I had something right to say. Finally, she added, he lives with his dad. Better that way. I nodded, though I didn't know why. Her eyes lingered on me longer than comfort allowed. You remind me of him sometimes. But you're quieter. I couldn't tell if that made me a stand-in or something else entirely. My stomach tightened either way. We drifted into lighter talk after that, work, neighbors, the broken elevator again. But beneath it all, I kept feeling the wrongness pressing in, her son's face in the photo, the way she poured coffee like she'd done it for someone 100 times before. When I stood to leave, she followed me to the door. The hallway light buzzed faintly. I shifted my weight, unsure what to say. Thanks for the coffee, I murmured. She smiled, small, tired, but it reached her eyes. Then she reached out and straightened the collar of my jacket. Just a quick brush of her fingers, so light it could have meant nothing. But I felt it all the way down. She pulled her hand back. See you around, neighbor. The door closed gently, leaving me in the buzzing light, my collar still warm where she touched it. The next time we crossed paths, it wasn't planned. I'd gone down to check the mail. She was already there, crouched in front of the row of boxes, balancing her keys in one hand and a bag of groceries in the other. Here, I said, taking the bag before she could argue. She looked up, a strand of hair falling across her cheek. You don't have to, I know. I held the bag anyway. We rode the elevator together, the bag pressed awkwardly between us. She leaned against the wall, eyes on the flickering numbers above the door. Her apartment smelled like citrus and faint detergent when she let me in. I set the bag down on the counter. She poured us both water without asking. We sat on the couch this time, side by side, a little too close for casual. She asked about my shift, about classes I'd dropped but never picked up again. I asked about her books stacked in corners, why half were turned upside down. So I don't reread the same one twice by mistake, she said, lips curving. Then, quieter. Or maybe I just like things a little messy. I wanted to ask more, but the air shifted. She went quiet, staring at her glass. I thought maybe she regretted letting me in at all. I shouldn't, she began, then stopped. Her hand traced the rim of the glass. You're kind. And young. The word caught in her throat like it surprised her. The silence grew heavy. I tried to break it with a laugh, but it came out flat. Not that young. Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp, searching. Then she stood, gathering plates that didn't need gathering, moving with a quickness that felt like retreat. I stayed seated, my hands clasped too tight. Just when I thought she'd send me out, the knock came. Sharp 3 times. She froze. Through the door. Mom? You home? A man's voice. Her son. She pressed a finger to her lips, eyes wide, then slipped to the door. Her voice came out calm, practiced. Not now, Daniel. I'm busy. A pause. Footsteps retreating. The lock clicked back into place. She leaned against the door, head tilted back, exhaling slowly. When she turned to me, something in her face had shifted, more guarded, like a wall had gone up mid-conversation. I think. She stopped again, shook her head. It's late. You should go. I stood, throat dry, but I didn't move toward the door right away. She noticed. We stood there, 2 feet apart. She lifted her hand slightly, as if to touch my arm, then let it fall before making contact. For a moment, our eyes held longer than they should have. My chest felt like it had caved in on itself. I almost said something, almost. But she opened the door first. The words stayed trapped behind my teeth. It was late afternoon when I found her outside, sitting on the bench by the side entrance. She had a thermos balanced on her knee, watching the sun slip between the buildings. You're off early, she said without looking up. Manager cut me. I sat at the other end of the bench. Too far. Too close. She unscrewed the lid of the thermos, poured a little into the cap, and offered it without words. I took it. The tea was lukewarm, faintly bitter. We sat in silence, the kind that pressed on my chest. Cars passed, kids yelled in the distance, and still neither of us moved. Finally, she said, "I saw you talking to the girl downstairs. With the red jacket." I blinked. "Oh. That's Maya. She just needed help with her groceries." Her lips pressed together, like she knew it was harmless but still wished she hadn't noticed. She looked away, fingers tightening on the thermos. "You shouldn't explain," she said softer now. "I don't own your time." I stared at the ground, at a cigarette but ground into the concrete. "Doesn't feel like just time." Her breath caught, just a small sound, but enough. When she finally turned back, her face was unguarded in a way I hadn't seen before. "This is wrong," she whispered. "You know that, don't you?" I couldn't answer. My throat locked. Her hand lifted, hovered in the air like she wanted to reach for mine, then curled back into her lap. She looked tired, more fragile than I'd ever noticed. "I keep telling myself it's nothing," she continued. "Coffee. Laundry. Sitting on a bench. But then I catch myself waiting for your footsteps in the hall." Her voice cracked at the edge, not dramatic, just real. The thermos slipped, clattering lightly against the bench. She didn't pick it up. I found myself leaning forward before I knew it. "I wait, too." Her eyes snapped to mine. A flash of something raw passed between us. Longing, guilt, something nameless. She shook her head once, like she wanted to scatter it away, but her shoulders didn't move. "Do you ever think about what happens if—" she began, then cut herself off. I swallowed hard. "If what?" Her mouth parted, words caught behind her teeth. She let the silence stretch, heavy enough to pin us both down. The world felt thinner in that moment, like the air itself had leaned in, listening. Her hand twitched on her lap, inches from mine. My heart stuttered in my chest. And then, she exhaled, steady but broken, eyes fixed on me. "Tell me," she whispered. "What do you think this is?" The next day, her door stayed closed. I heard movement inside, water running, a chair scraping across the floor, but she didn't step into the hallway. I lingered longer than I should have, keys in my hand, waiting for some excuse to knock. None came. 2 days passed. Then 3. When I finally saw her again, it was at the grocery store down the block. She was in the self-checkout line, a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. She spotted me but didn't smile, didn't wave. Just nodded once, as if we were neighbors in the plainest sense of the word. I told myself to walk over, to ask if she wanted help carrying her bags like always. But her expression had a distance I couldn't cross. She scanned her items quickly and was gone before I reached her aisle. That night, I thought about her words on the bench. "What do you think this is?" I hadn't answered then. Maybe that silence was louder than I realized. When my shift ended, I checked my phone. No messages. Just old ones from weeks ago. The hallway felt longer than usual as I walked back to my apartment. Her door was shut, a thin line of light spilling from the bottom. I slowed down, listening, but kept moving. The next morning, a knock startled me awake. Not hers, his. A man, older, standing at her door with a suitcase at his side. I watched through the peephole. He leaned in when she opened the door. Her voice was muffled, but warm. Familiar. They stood close. Too close. She touched his arm before letting him in. I stepped back, my chest tight. For hours after, I heard nothing. Just the steady hum of the building. When I left for work, the suitcase was still parked by her door. That night I didn't stop by. I didn't want to. Or maybe I wanted to too much. My phone stayed in my hand anyway, thumb hovering over a blank message. "Are you okay? Do you want to talk? Who was he?" I typed and erased them all. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall between us. Her laughter broke through once, muted, but unmistakable. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The cursor blinked on my phone, waiting for words I couldn't send. The message stayed unsent. It was raining the night she opened her door again. Not much, just a thin drizzle that made the hallway smell of damp concrete. I'd gone out to take the trash down, head low, hoodie pulled tight. Her door clicked before I reached the stairs. Wait. I stopped. She stood there, hair loose, sweater sleeves pulled over her hands. No makeup. Just her, tired, real. Come in, she said. Not a request, not quite an order. Her kitchen light was dim, a single bulb over the sink. A mug sat half-filled on the counter, forgotten. She didn't move to tidy this time. She just leaned against the counter and looked at me. I should explain, she said, voice low. That man. He's not back. He just. She trailed off, rubbed her forehead. He needed a place to sleep. That's all. I nodded, though my chest ached. Her eyes flicked to mine, quick and sharp. You don't believe me. I do. The words surprised me with their certainty. Silence. Just the rain pattering against the window. Then she exhaled, shaky. I keep trying to draw lines. And then I keep watching myself step over them. Her hand tightened on the counter's edge. You make it too easy. I didn't move closer. Didn't trust myself to. You think I don't feel the same? Her lips pressed together, the smallest tremor in her jaw. That's the problem. The words landed like a weight between us. I could have left then, safe, silent. But I didn't. I stepped closer, slow, until I was near enough to see the faint shadows under her eyes, the uneven way her breath came. I don't want to pretend, I said. My throat felt raw. Not anymore. Her gaze dropped to the floor, then lifted, steady this time. And what happens if we stop pretending? I swallowed. I don't know. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then, she reached out. Just the back of her hand brushing mine. Barely there, but more than anything before. The touch held. No rush, no pulling closer. Just a simple, human weight against my skin. Her shoulders eased, the faintest smile breaking through, fragile, almost unwilling, but real. Okay, she whispered. That was all. Time didn't shift all at once. It never does. The next few weeks were uneven, days of silence, then nights where we found ourselves in the same space without meaning to. A shared elevator ride. A knock at the door when the kettle whistled too loud. Small things that turned into habits without us naming them. The bench outside became ours. Sometimes we sat at 8:47 a.m., before her work calls and before my late shifts, passing a thermos back and forth. She still poured tea into the lid, and I still pretended I didn't burn my tongue. It wasn't romance in the way people talk about it. There were no declarations, no promises scratched into forever. Just the way she'd push an extra blanket toward me on her couch when I fell asleep mid-conversation. The way I'd carry her groceries without being asked, even when she rolled her eyes at me for doing it. The distance never fully disappeared. It hung in the air, a quiet reminder of everything unspoken. But it stopped scaring us. Once, she caught me watching her fold laundry, that same slow precision she always had. She smiled, shaking her head. You're going to make me nervous if you keep staring. Not staring, I said. Just remembering. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't need to. Her son came by less after that night. I think he sensed something, though he never asked directly. She never explained, and neither did I. Some things stay private by surviving only in the spaces between words. The rain came and went, the seasons tilted. We didn't change the world. We just changed the way the hallway felt. Warmer. Less lonely. One evening, she set 2 mugs of coffee on the counter, both black, no sugar. I frowned. You don't take sugar either? I asked. She smirked, lifting her cup. Never did. For a second, the whole room seemed to fold back to that laundromat, the hum of machines, her folding towels while I tore a receipt into pieces. I realized how far we'd come, and how little had actually needed to be said. Later, as I left, she tugged my sleeve lightly, stopping me in the doorway. No words. Just that small, familiar gesture. I stayed a beat longer than usual, enough for her hand to slip away only when she wanted it to. And that was enough. When I lay in bed that night, the thought came simple, almost too simple. She was here, I was here, and life, messy, complicated life, felt bearable. No ending. Just this. Just us.